Good evening and welcome to the 8th edition of Minority Caucus here on JoyNews TV. My name is Peter Bamfo and I will be your host for tonight's edition, or sitting in, of course, for your regular host, Obobia Dako Opoko, my own adorable, who is out of the jurisdiction on an equally important assignment. Now, the ability to create enough jobs that pay well is among one of the biggest challenges of any government. The one constant in His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama's speeches as he tours the country is the promise to create a sustainable and decent jobs for the people of Ghana. Now, this will not only ensure enough employment opportunities for our teeming youth, but will also ensure that government's workers, of course, are paid decent wages. Here on Minority Caucus tonight, we will continue unpacking the People's Manifesto. Our focus tonight will be on the creation of sustainable and decent jobs, christened as Ejumapa, in the People's Manifesto. And with me in the studio to have this discussion is the former Chief Executive Officer of the Youth Enterprise Support, my own sister. Don't go away. When I come back, I will introduce her appropriately and what she has been up to today and in previous times.
The NDC established the Ghana Exim Bank to promote jobs and exports. The NDC will again generate economic growth that creates infrastructure and sustainable jobs. We will usher Ghana into an era of shared prosperity, and all Ghanaians will reap the fruits of their labor. We need to turn our beloved country Ghana into an advanced one, and we must eradicate poverty. It is possible, and we will do it. How will we achieve these targets? How will we achieve these targets? We will exempt small businesses from paying corporate and personal income tax. That is to re-inject their profits back into the businesses. We estimate that this will involve about 1.4 billion Ghana cedis a year. And that will be the best stimulus you can inject back in order to expand small and medium enterprises. For medium-sized Ghanaian businesses, we will reduce the corporate income tax rate from 25% to 15%. In order to give them breathing room to be able to reinvest in and grow their businesses. But very interesting, we will exempt newly established medium-sized companies that employ up to 20 people or 20 workers from paying corporate income tax for the first year when they are establishing the business. This is important because the most critical time in establishing a business is the first year when you are investing. And when you're investing, it's not the right time for government to come asking you to bring money. And so we will give them that relief. And for businesses that employ 20 or more, medium-sized businesses, they will get corporate tax exemption for 2 years so that they can establish the business properly and expand the business to employ more people.
You're welcome back. This is Minority Caucus here on JoyNews TV. It's also streaming live on the National Communications Bureau of the NDC on Facebook. I indicated to you that my own Helga Boadi, who is a former CEO of the Youth Enterprise Support, is going to be my guest tonight. And she was part of the team that went around when President or the flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, launched the retail campaign of the party. And we're going to start the conversation by finding out exactly how the door-to-door campaign went for her before we even delve into the main issues for tonight, and that is creating sustainable jobs for our teeming unemployed youth in the country, as contained in the NDC's Manifesto for 2020. And so good evening once again, and thank you very much for agreeing to be on tonight.
Thank you, Peter.
How was the tour today when you went?
Oh, it was amazing. The euphoria. It's something I don't think I've seen that in a long time. You know, Dodo is where I come from. Both my parents come from there.
Knew you, actually.
Yeah, my dad comes from Asre and my mother comes from Ngleshi, Jamestown.
Right.
And when we started, it was raining and I thought people would go home. These young people were coming in. As we were going along, we had more people going, joining us. So at some point, I turned around and I was like, we had you couldn't even see beyond, the crowd that we had. And the support that they were showing us, you could tell that it was heartfelt, it was genuine, and they genuinely want to change. So I was very, very, very happy. We got beaten by the rain, but it was like being young again. Being a child again.
What were you telling them?
We were telling them to vote for our flag bearer because he's coming to create more jobs, sustainable jobs, decent jobs, permanent jobs, to raise the livelihoods and develop the economy of our country.
We'll have a lot more conversation on that, but even before we go into why you're here, you do recall not long ago President Akufo-Addo launched a project that you started when you were at the Youth Enterprise Support. Tell us about that project, the Greenhouse Project, and why we have
let me take you back a little bit because people don't even know the history. So in late 2014, then President Mahama visited Kede. The University of Ghana had a forest and horticultural research center there. And whilst he was there, he was touring through these greenhouses. I was watching it on television and I was listening to what the lecturers and the researchers were telling him about, the length of time it took to grow tomatoes and cucumbers and capsicums and stuff. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I mean, if we can grow tomatoes for 55 days and then we harvest, it's actually going to help reduce the number of imports that we bring in for vegetables from the neighboring countries. So we perceived the idea. We had discussions with these lecturers, the researchers, and then we went ahead to actually acquire land at Irrigation Development Authority in Dawenya in 2015.
This was in 2015?
I'm talking about January 2015. Now, once we acquired the land, of course, you have to prepare the land. We started going through the procurement processes to acquire the greenhouses. Before that, we even, trying to identify supplies, like best supplies to give us the best yields, etc. Because there were a few greenhouses around that were not really functional. So we wanted to do something and do it right. Yes was new, and we couldn't afford to make it have any issues. So late 2015, we went through our procurement processes. We ordered these greenhouses. We started constructing these greenhouses in 2016. Whilst we were constructing these greenhouses, we're actually training the young people at Kede, the Fokrek Center in Kede, in how to, because you can't just get up and start growing in the greenhouses. It takes a bit of technicalities, etc. So we're training them in Kede whilst constructing the greenhouses in Dawenya. We're even training artisans as well to help us install these greenhouses. Now, the good thing, what we're doing is that
So just to inform our viewers out there that those pictures...
These are actually when the units were being supplied. This is me handing over finally in May 2017 to the current CEO.
So all these were part of the team that you started the project with?
Yeah, the trucks you see was when the units were being delivered to the site. I mean, it was a big day because these greenhouses actually currently are the largest in sub-Saharan Africa currently. And there are 74 greenhouses with one nursery.
So if I should put it this way, maybe if it is correct, you can tell me that President Akufo-Addo, as far as this project is concerned, knows nothing about the conception of it.
No, they know absolutely.
And the project itself knows nothing about it. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, and they cannot claim that they build these greenhouses. They cannot. I mean, it's not even feasible because before we left office, all these units were on the site. They were just being installed. Indeed, the contractor was on site, had been paid to be able to finish his installation. So it beats my mind how anybody can, come up and say, oh no, it was MPP that built these greenhouses. They didn't. It was under John Mahama.
At the time you left office, there were people you had started training.
Yes.
How many were there?
There were about 17 in total. Because people get trained and then they move to Dawenya. They get trained and then they move to Dawenya. But at the time we're leaving, there were 17. We're looking to recruit more of them from the Greek-sent colleges from around the country. Unfortunately, we lost power. We went out of office. And I think all of them were sent away from the site. sadly.
This is a Minority Caucus here on JoyNews TV, and it's also streaming live on the National Communications Bureau page on Facebook, for those of you who are watching us online. Let's come to what is in there for the Ghanaian youth as far as the NDC's manifesto for 2020 is concerned. There's been a lot of talk about unemployment. I think it's one issue that governments in and out have had issues resolving. But I see that there's some concrete plans in there, manifesto of the NDC, to deal with this issue, which you have christened Ejumapa. Tell us about Ejumapa.
Okay, so Ejumapa in the NDC's manifesto, our manifesto, which is christened Jobs and Prosperity for All, Ejumapa seeks to create a minimum of 250,000 jobs per year for our young people and other unemployed people within the country. Now, creation of jobs is very important to our incoming president. I like to call him that. And these will be hinged on a few areas as detailed in our page 102 of our manifesto. Now, among some of these areas is the aggressive training and skills development. Because you see, many a time people go out into the field to look for jobs and they are told, oh, you don't have the requisite experience. Where do they go and wait before they get experience? So the new NDC government is going to take it upon themselves to train these young people, skills training, develop them and get them ready for the job market. Now, another area is the National Apprenticeship Program. A lot of it was talked about at the manifesto launch. Young people will be trained in apprenticeship free of charge. The government will take the cost of training these people. So you don't have to worry about, I want to go and learn plumbing or welding, or I want to be an electrician. You don't have money to go and, pay a master to train you. The incoming NDC government, the new administration of NDC, will take that cost. Take that cost away from parents and families and pay for the national apprenticeship program.
Before you go deep into that, why is vocational and technical education very critical as far as to the NDC, I noticed?
Let me go back a little bit to when we were at YES and, the other intervention programs that we set up. It's not everybody who can be in the office. Indeed, some people are not even cut out for the office. But we need to also package vocational training and vocational work and make it attractive. Many a time people think that, oh, if I'm doing vocational work, it means I don't have the right training, or I didn't finish school. It's going to be a minimum paying job. We are saying that vocation is also going to be key as part of the new NDC government, as detailed in our manifesto. We'll be training people. Indeed, TVET and CODVET training will be free. We're making it free because we want a lot more young people to go into the vocational area. There's a lot of space for artisans. There's a lot of space for carpentry work, for plumbing work, for electricians work. When you go in other jurisdictions, you see how well they are paid. People actually yearn to go into those professions. We want to make it attractive for our young people come the new NDC administration in 2020. 21.
And in these areas that you've talked about, I see that there's you're going to be training people, artisanal persons, and mechanics and so on and so forth. But the NPP will also tell us, or will tell you, that indeed when you look at their model of job creation, they've introduced NAPCO. I mean, what is the NDC talking about? So
NAPCO, as far as I know, because I don't know, as far as I know, it's temporary. Young people who are out of university don't have a job are supposed to apply at NAPCO, and I think they get paid 700 cedis. In our current dispensation, you and I both know that that money will not go far. Now, what
some are not paid at all.
Well, some are actually, that's another thing. Now, under Ejumapa, we are talking about decent, permanent, and sustainable jobs. Indeed, under Ejumapa, NAPCO trainees, NAPCO beneficiaries will be given permanent and decent paying jobs. So, MPP might be training people in NAPCO, but we are taking them a step further. So if you come out of NAPCO after a year, what happens? You sit at home? We are taking them further. We don't even want them to think that, oh, a new government comes, they'll take NAPCO away. No, we will enhance it. We will give them permanent, decent, and sustainable jobs so they can also take care of their families. And then the economy becomes better for it.
Why the focus on the youth?
Why not? The youth form a greater part of our population. The last time I checked, the youth form about 57%. I could be wrong, but it's not even less than 50%. So if you don't focus on the youth and you don't make the youth a focal point, the policies that you create, who are they going to hit? The youth are an integral part of any society. If you have the youth, if you take care of the youth, if you provide jobs for the youth, if you provide training for the youth, your country develops, the economy develops, and the youth are stronger as well. We are all growing. The young people are coming up. Train them, give them decent jobs, put them out in the field, and this is what President Mahama seeks to do. Focus on the youth, give them sustainable jobs, push them out through Jumapa. 1 million jobs in 4 years is not a small thing. It's not a joke.
You were at the Youth Enterprise Support. Do you get the impression that those promises, programs contained in the NDC's Manifesto for 2020 actually addresses the challenge facing the youth as far as unemployment is concerned?
If you go through our manifesto, and I was telling somebody a couple of days ago that when you read our manifesto, there's something in it for everyone. You know, some of the growth areas that we're talking about in terms of the job creation is agriculture and agro-processing, for instance. Agriculture is the backbone of our economy. We need to be able to help our farmers grow more, grow better, farm smarter, and then help them to even process their produce by mitigating the post-harvest losses. If people are canning tomatoes, for instance, in Pualugu, we can export these tomatoes, we can sell them on the markets. It means we also reduce our imports. We're going to help people in the areas of pharmaceuticals as well. Light manufacturing is also another key area. Now, all these things, we're going to be working with private sectors as well as develop, to create new factories to help these people in these areas. We're talking about financial services. Banks have been collapsed. People are out of work. Something must be done to bring them on board, to bring them into the Ejumapa space. Ejumapa is a big thing. I mean, 1 million jobs, I've said earlier on, it's not a small thing. There are other things like health, tourism, oil and gas, tourism sector. The last time we talked about tourism, people were thinking, tourism. I'm thinking, if you go around the country, I've gone around the country about 3 times. Now, there's so many beautiful areas in our country. We need to enhance these sites, not only for ourselves, but even for external people who come in. Have, improve the access to the roads to these domestic sites, even train tour guides, set up the places where, like if you go to the Kintampu Falls, for instance, if we can have restaurants there, all these things create jobs and boost our tourism sector and allow us to also earn money and revenue, foreign exchange.
One of the challenges with doing business, as far as being a young entrepreneur is concerned, is the problem with the high taxes that we pay. Is there anything in there for young people when it comes to addressing that problem?
So again, that's why I said the manifesto has something for everyone. If you look at the manifesto under the youth development, former President Mahama, is saying that for new businesses, especially for the youth, there'll be the youth enterprise tax waiver. So you don't pay taxes.
Tell us about it.
So let me even go back and talk about the tax exemptions as well for businesses that also employ young people through the National Employment Bureau.
Very well.
Now, with the youth enterprise tax waiver, for instance, a young person has been helped by government to set up a business. If you immediately start taxing them, how are they even going to grow their revenue? You want these young people being supported by government, employ people, be able to grow their business. Now, if you're worried about, okay, so I've got to pay my taxes currently stand about 25%. I know President Mahama says in our manifesto that we're going to reduce it to about 15%. Now, if the young person setting up his business is focusing only on growing his business, the tax has been waived by government. It gives you that peace of mind. I mean, for instance, Peter, if you're going to start a business and you're told that for the next 2 years, you're not going to pay any taxes, how would it make you feel? You will only focus on growing your business, absolutely, and then you can even employ more people. So that tax waiver thing is crucial. Many a time people think that, as for the tax we all pay, but when you're really writing that checks for the taxman, that's when you realize that this money could have expanded my business for another 30% for 30% growth. So the tax waiver thing under the youth enterprise tax waiver, it's key.
Are there some specific classes of entrepreneurs who are going to enjoy or benefit from that? Or once you're a young entrepreneur coming to government for support, you will enjoy the tax waiver under the youth enterprise tax waiver. Now, I noticed also that in the People's Manifesto under job creation,
yes,
the next NDC government promises to pass the Employment Act.
Yes,
and you have described it as the first of its kind. Now, as a lawyer,
I'm not a lawyer.
Sorry. But tell us more about that particular promo.
Since you said I'm a lawyer, I'm trying to find my legal documents.
You have to, because now you do know that now. Only yesterday we had, for the first time, more than 1,000 number of applicants passing to attend to go to the law school this year. So that's I don't think that you're actually far from that at all.
Actually,
tell us about the Employment Act.
Okay, so the Employment Act, which is going to be the first of its kind, seeks to, amongst other things, allow the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies help create jobs within their local economies. I don't want to be too technical about it, but let me just give an example. So, for instance, we have a beneficiary in the north, in Gurugu, for example. She's producing, let's say, poultry. She needs employees. Rather than go to maybe another locality or maybe even another region to go and look for employees, the district assembly is going to be taxed by looking for young people who are looking for work. So you provide this poultry farmer with employees. This same poultry farmer might need a couple of tricycles to facilitate the delivery of their produce when it's done. Rather than come all the way to the Greater Accra region, for instance, to access maybe a Maslok loan, the district assembly will be able to support. Doing that allows the district assembly to be involved in developing the local economy that they operate in. So that not everything is not centralized in one area. When you come to, let's say, the northern region, things are happening there. Things are happening for the people, by the people, and they enjoy it.
Now, you also, I see that there's a lot of talk about this shift economy, which President Mahama intends to introduce. So,
currently, what we operate in Ghana is a two-shift economy. Now, the two-shift economy, economy means people, companies that are in the manufacturing sector, other companies that operate over a 24-hour period are doing two shifts. Two shifts means you come, you work for 12-hour periods. That is actually against the labor law. But again, don't ask me because I'm not a lawyer. But that is against the labor law. So President Mahama is saying that when he comes in, he's going to create a third shift. That third shift actually creates a third stream of jobs. So people will be taxed to work for 8 hours. So you work for 8 hours, afternoon shift works for 8 hours, and then the night shift works for 8 hours. That 8 hours alone, can you imagine the number of jobs that it will create? This is all going to be part of the Employment Act that will be passed once he's sworn in as president.
Is that not going to put an undue pressure on employers?
Not necessarily. You see, a lot of the things we are talking about in terms of the Jumapa, creation of jobs, etc., we're going to leverage with the private sector as well and liaise with them, collaborate with them, make sure that we have an enabling environment for them. Indeed, I talked about granting tax waivers as well to these existing industries, companies, employing young people. So if the environment is so enabling, I don't think creating a third shift will be much of a problem. Indeed, I think they'll be happy for it because currently working for 12 hours is against the law. But I'm not a lawyer.
Madam Helga Boadi is a former Chief Executive Officer of the Youth Enterprise Support, and tonight we are discussing what is contained in the NDC's Manifesto for 2020 as far as job creation for our youth is concerned. And now let's focus a bit more attention on digitizing our economy. I see that the manifesto really places a lot of emphasis on how the next NDC administration is going to digitize the economy. You may want to share. First of all, how important is this concept of digitization to the NDC?
Let me talk about digitization in relation to our current COVID situation. Currently, because COVID came, many people had to be home. Now, many people have gone back to work, but people are still working from home. Now, when you have a digitized economy, which President Mahama seeks to do, people don't necessarily have to be in the office, all the time. Working from home, but not even compromising on output and production is, I think, the way to go in our current dispensation. So, again, I won't say digitizing the economy is going to be a bad thing. I think based on what we've experienced now, is the way to go. We've had Zoom meetings, and Zoom meetings have worked. People have worked from home, and it's also worked. So going forward, President Mahama says that he's going to formalize the introduction of this process of public sector workers not always having to come to the office. By doing this, it means that you also have to make sure that your communication network is on point. You've got to make sure that internet access is out to a lot more people. Then that way, many people can work from wherever they are without commuting all the way. For instance, you live in Kaswa, you have to drive every morning to come to work in the ministry. You can sit at home, do the job that you need to do. Maybe once a week or twice a week, you go into the office, do what you have to do, etc. But like I said, it's not going to compromise on production and output. We are also going to encourage the private sector to take this up, where half of the people can, for instance, work from home on a particular time, another half is working. You'll be amazed that in this current situation, people are saying that those who are working from home are actually doing much better than when you come and sit in the office, because you don't have to worry about that 2-hour commute. Yeah.
And
digitization is not my area, so
no problem. But let's come back to deal with this perception from people, from your opponents, that the Ejumapa, the 1 million threshold that you have given yourself, Ivan, is an overly ambitious figure.
How is it ambitious?
That you can't achieve 250,000 a year, jobs a year.
And if one of them were here, I'd ask him, why not? We can. I don't think President Mahama has ever said something that he's not able to do. We all trust him. We know what he did in his 4 years as president. And I don't think, for instance, don't have any doubt that we'll be able to create these 250,000 jobs. If you look at our manifesto again, there are many initiatives that are going to be set up once he comes to office. So there'll be something for everybody. Jobs will be created. This reshift economy, for instance, you and I have no idea the number of jobs that it could create, for instance. So 250,000 jobs, it is doable and it will be done.
And in some of the sectors that you have talked about, I make reference to your time at the Youth Enterprise Support. If you look at that particular concept and what President or the new NDC manifesto is offering now with the National Apprenticeship Program, what are some of the lessons we can draw with your time at the Youth Enterprise?
So what I noticed, let me use this as an example again. When YES was set up, the number of applications that we received in a space of 3 months was, we received something like 6,000 applications within 3 months. We hadn't even advertised yet. 6,000, and there was a lot more. As we were going around the country, we found many more people who said, look, we didn't apply because we thought, we have to write a proposal. We're not very conversant with the English language. And I'll talk about REAP later on in the program. We're not very conversant, but we need jobs. We need something to do. The gap is wide. And the gap is so wide that, like I said, as you go around, you see the people who are ready to work. And President Mahama, when he comes back, says that, look, he's going to create the space to get all these people on board, give them the sustainable jobs.
Most of the time, most of the time, the criticism is that if you look at some of the policies or the proposals these young people submit, you need to do a lot of work on that. Is there a space for such persons to also benefit?
Okay, so let me explain this to you. Again, going back to the experience we gained, because we gained experience through our NDC government, we didn't necessarily ask everybody to bring a proposal. Look, there were young people who felt challenged by writing a proposal, but knew their trade. When you spoke to them, if it was about poultry and he was speaking to you about his guinea fowl, his turkeys, his tilapia, you knew that he knew his trade. Let me not even go far. Let's go to the beach, where I come from. The fishermen over there, if you ask them to write a proposal, can they? But they go on the seas every day, they haul in the fish, they sell, and they make money. These are people that a little help can be able to do so much more. If we, for instance, gave them the cold store at the beaches, can you imagine what they can do? They won't have to worry about selling them at even cheap when the sun was coming up and the fish was going to go off. So there's space for everybody. Young people don't necessarily have to bring a proposal. Come speak to us. That's what we did at YES. Some of them, I'll give you an example. A young man we supported called Eric Opong. His company is EO Shoes. Eric came to our offices and said, make a tree. And we're like, go right ahead. He actually gave us that idea, and thank you to him, that it's not everybody we should force to speak. English language is not our language. It's a secondary language to us. And we said, look, feel free, speak your tree. And the guy knew about shoes. Of course, we helped him with standardization to make sure that his sizes were up to standard. So if somebody ordered it from outside the country, it would conform to international standards, etc., etc. But young people don't necessarily have to speak any big English, have to write any big proposals to come to us to access all the support through the Youth Entrepreneurial Development Program, the Youth Enterprise Startup that I talked about. There's space for everybody. Now, come, once you know what you want to do and you know your trade, we will just support you, because of course we have to give you business support, some technical support, and make sure that your business flourishes.
So mentorship is actually a part of this whole drive.
Yes. You know, you can't support young people without mentorship and monitoring.
How much of that did you achieve when you were at the Youth Enterprise Support?
100 over 100. If I say so myself. No, we did. You know why I say 100 over 100? Because our funding came from then EDIF. And EDIF themselves were also monitoring our young people as we were monitoring them. We treated these young people as family. And going forward in the next NDC administration, our young people are going to be family to us. They are not strangers, they are part of us. They are Ghanaians like us. You treat the young people as family, trust me, whatever you give to them, he will look after it, she will look after it, and make sure that that money you're giving to them, they triple, they quadruple it. Spread out their business, grow their business, and even help more young people. It's doable.
Yeah, so let's tune in to Minority Caucus here on JoyNews TV. We're going for a quick breather. When we return, the conversation continues. Don't go nowhere. It's Minority Caucus here on JoyNews TV, and my guest, Mrs. Helga Boadi. She is the former Chief Executive Officer of the Youth Enterprise Support, and we have been looking at her time at the Youth Enterprise Support years, what she was able to achieve, and what's going forward into 2021 and beyond, what the NDC promises, of course, for our teaming unemployed youth. Now, you have talked a lot about vocational and technical education. For persons who really may not want to belong to this category, will they also be captured, or will they have space in the Ejumapa policy of President Mahama? Okay,
so Peter, you know, earlier I was saying that if you look in our manifesto, it says jobs and prosperity for all. Let me even rephrase, so I'm sure. Jobs and prosperity for all. Mm-hmm. So that's why I told you earlier that there's something for everybody captured within this manifesto, and without a shadow of a doubt, the next NDC government will take care of everybody within the space. Somebody might not want to be, what were you saying, one might not want to be in the vocational space, want to be in the...
Because you see, there are a lot of youth-based programs which favors those who do vocational and technical education, perhaps.
Not necessarily.
And for those who go through the regulars, might not be able to benefit from that.
So remember, I mentioned to you earlier that NAPCO beneficiaries will not be discarded with, but will be given decent and sustainable jobs. We are also creating a 3-shift economy. We're also going to create that enabling environment for the private sector to thrive. If the private sector is thriving, it means that employment will be at an all-time high. So for those who want to go in the office, there will be space for them. Public sector can employ a lot, but cannot employ everyone. So we leverage on the private sector, we liaise with them, we collaborate with them, make sure, again, that's why I mentioned the taxes, the tax waiver, it is so critical. When you reduce the burden of the tax for the corporate world, it allows them to also grow their businesses. And when you're growing your businesses, you need employees. You cannot do it by yourself. I worked in I don't want to mention the company name, but when I was working there, we were only about 166 people. Today, they stand at about 5,000. Because they were benefiting from some of the incentives that governments were putting across year in, year out. So there will be space for everybody. It's not just the vocationals. It's not just those who want to go in agriculture. It's not just those who want to be in manufacturing. If you want to be in an office, I have no doubt in my mind that creating the incentives that we are going to create for the private corporate sector would allow them to also employ more people.
Starting a
Are you worried?
Starting a business.
Are you worried?
I'm not.
Don't be worried.
Starting a business, or yes, in this country, people. I mean, lots of critics have talked about the ease of or the
doing
difficulty.
business.
I mean, what is there for persons who really want to register their own?
Okay, so again, under the youth development policy, again in our manifesto, we are going to create a one-stop business service center. So for instance, you want to set up a business. Let me use you as an example. For instance, you want to set up your business. It's a new business. You come, you don't want to go through the hassle of the Registrar General, FDA, GSA, because you have to go here, you have to go here, you have to go here, you have to go here. We're going to try and create a friendly desk. I'm calling it a friendly youth desk in the Ministry for Youth Development that is going to be instituted by the President, for example. So the young people can go there. You can get access to your Registrar General and register your business. You register your business, you get your TIN. You can get access if, for instance, you're going into manufacturing. You have the GSA, you have the FDA who would certify, you know, your I mean, whatever produce you're thinking about going into for you. So that it minimizes, because I know that yes, a lot of people were scared. Some of them said, we don't even want to register our business. We said, if you don't register your business, how would you eventually start paying taxes to support the government that supported you with the startup capital? Because of the ease of doing business. So that friendly desk, and also ensure that these agencies are also realigned to run more efficiently and effectively, and also made more business friendly. And then again, digitization that you talked about. If they digitize some of these services that they offer, it would make it easier for someone to sit in the comfort of their home or wherever and have access to these services. Without necessarily having to go through that hassle of, for instance, coming all the way down to Accra. Another thing that is also going to be important is that these friendly business youth desks will be decentralized. So you don't have to come to Accra or come to Kumasi. It will be within the districts. It will be within the regions. So wherever you find yourself, you will have a place to go to get all these services at your disposal to make sure that your businesses start off and run very, very smoothly. We want to see more young people grow very well. I mean, if I see some of our beneficiaries today, I marvel about how well they've done. One person, for instance, currently is employing about 3,000 people through your support. Oh, yeah.
During your time?
Yes. He's operating, yes. He's operating in Togome.
Wow.
Yes, another lady is exporting about 37 tons of shea butter every quarter to the US and the UK.
Wow.
Yes.
Is that the reason for the decoupling of the Ministry for Youth? Because the President Mahama says that he's going to have a ministry solely for the young people, for the youth. I mean, people will say, critics will say that that is not what is necessary. What is necessary really has to do with how well you are able to resource, irrespective of whether you've done the decoupling or not. Is that a view you share?
It's not a yes or no answer. All I want to say is that, as I mentioned to you much earlier, the youth are an integral part of our society, and the youth form a greater number of our population. As I told you, the last time I checked, it was about 50%, between 50 to 57%. Now, if you don't focus on the youth, who are you going to focus on? We have youth and sports. Ghana is a sport-loving country, and so a lot more emphasis is placed on the sports. If randomly go on the street and ask anybody, if you go to the Ministry of Youth and Sports, do you see the youth aspect being, do you feel it? I'm not sure. I'm sure the answer that I'll get might be.
During your time in government, I do recall the National Youth Authority at the time making, this advocacy for the decoupling or the ministry to just stand on its own.
Peter, I think it's important. It didn't happen then, but we are looking to come back, and in 2021, it will happen. We cannot forget about the youth. If we forget about the youth, we'll be in a lot of trouble. Setting up a youth ministry, I think, is long overdue, and I'm so happy that President Mahama wants to set that up.
Why?
Because the youth will have somewhere to go to. Right now, where do we have to go? I'm considering myself a youth right now. Where do we have to go? The youth ministry is a long time in coming. I'm just excited about that because, again, you see, all the things I talked about in terms of the ease of doing business, etc., it will be centered over there. So the people who have fear that, oh, I go to registrar here, I go to this, I have all the challenges, go to the Ministry of Youth. It is for you. Go there and demand your services. It will be done for you with a friendly face.
There's a young person watching you right now and wants to be assured that come 2021 or December 2021, the first batch of 250 jobs or more,
250,000
jobs or more will be provided.
It will be provided. You see, okay, so let me go back. The Employment Act, one of the things that the Employment Act seeks to do or will do is to allow us to collect data. Data not only on unemployment rates, but data also on jobs that have been created. These are going to be done, as I mentioned, through the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. They'll be providing us periodic updates on the jobs that are being created to make sure that the policies that we are also creating is helping in the Ejumapa and the job creation. So once we are getting periodic reports from them, if, for instance, in the first month you've done 10,000, you know that you've got to speed up your efforts. But if in the first month we've done 50,000, you know that you only have about 200,000 more to do, and it can be done. Look, it's over a year. It just means that for every year you're looking at about 25,000 jobs being created. Sorry, for every month 25,000 jobs. It can be done, Peter. I'm telling you, without a shadow of a doubt. Look, there are many young people across the sectors: agriculture, manufacturing, financial services, health, pharmaceutical, tourism, even in sports. You know, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, our manifesto is so loaded. Look at the coastal and landscape forest management, for instance. If you remember YEA, the young people were deployed to these areas. How many were we doing in every half year? About 100,000. I have no doubt that we can do 250,000 in an enhanced way because there are many more initiatives that are going to come up. We'll do it through them. So the young people should not worry.
Someone has just, a listener, someone watching you has just sent me a message here and wants to know, and wants to be assured that the next government of President Mahama will not abolish NAPCO.
I mentioned, and I think I've said it 3 times, that through Ejumapa, NAPCO beneficiaries will be given decent, sustainable, and permanent jobs. Should I repeat it again?
Please do. And
NAPCO beneficiaries.
How that is supposed to work out?
You see, again, it's going to work out through this Ejumapa policy that we are rolling out through public and private sector. NAPCO beneficiaries will be given decent jobs. They'll be given sustainable jobs. They'll be given permanent jobs. Jobs that pay them well enough to take care of themselves and their families.
Will the greenhouse feature again?
Oh, it should. You know, the plan for these greenhouses were that we're going to deploy them across the country. Now, when you talk about agric, or you tell a young person, go and farm, immediately though, I don't want to farm, I have to bend down, till the land, etc. Greenhouse agriculture is smart farming. You don't have to weed, you don't have to do a lot of watering. Once you set up the unit, the loop irrigation system, you come, you turn your tap on, it waters your things for you, it fertigates it for you at the same time. You don't have to spray for insects because it's a controlled environment of growing. So we were going to deploy it in across the regions. Then it was 10 regions, but now 16 regions of Ghana. We will have these greenhouses there for the young people to farm within them. And also, let me say this. When you grow in the greenhouse, the produce you get, the length of time that they can stay on the shelf is far longer than even when you're doing the open field.
How does that?
The controlled environment. You're not spraying with pesticides. You're not spraying to protect them from animals eating them. And so it's more organic. They have a longer lasting shelf life. If you put a tomato from a greenhouse on your shelf, 7 days you come and it's still there. It's just going to ripe up for you.
At the time you were establishing the greenhouse in Dowenya, what numbers were you looking at as far as employment?
We're looking at Dowenya, for example, we're looking at 4 people per greenhouse. 1 to manage when it was growing, and then an extra 3 when you were harvesting. That was just for Dowenya. Remember, when we're harvesting, the off-takers were going to be coming there to also pick their produce, to go and sell. And so 4 people per greenhouse at that time, we're looking at something like 300, but that was just for only the greenhouses. And 300 might seem like a small number, but trust me, the amount of money it was going to generate per year for us, it was going to be our own internally generated fund so that we could support more young people without necessarily running to go and look for more money at any given time. And we don't produce nearly enough vegetables in our country. So having more greenhouses also means that you can produce year round. You don't need to wait for rain. You don't need to wait for a particular growing season. You can grow anything in a greenhouse year round, all the time.
Are you disappointed at what the institution you left behind is being run now?
You know, what hurts me, I won't even use the word disappointed, but what hurts me, it actually breaks my heart, is the fact that the young people who were working in the greenhouses were Ghanaians. They didn't have a color. Why sending them away, you know, it still beats my mind.
What were they doing there?
They were farming in the greenhouses.
These were young people.
These were young people. And you know, we had an off-taker who were growing according to his production cycle. So sending these young people away meant that this man now had to go back to start importing. So for me, it's more of a deep disappointment that these greenhouses, you go there and they're actually lying bare. I took a drive there not too long ago. They're lying bare.
Even after the...
they're lying bare, I'm telling you. You know, it was such an innovative thing for us. So we didn't joke around with it. It's lying bare. And can you imagine, look, within one greenhouse, I'll let somebody else do the math, or maybe our viewers can do the math. You can put 952 tomato plants in a greenhouse. Each plant will give you 5 kilos upon harvest.
Wow.
Each kilo, you sell it minimum for 5 cedis for the off-taker. And that was just like a farm gate price. Imagine doing that across 75 units. Just tomatoes, for instance, 55 days. Which means that you can do this 4 times.
In a year.
So in Dawenya, for instance, you're looking at something close to 4.7 million Ghana cedis in tomatoes. And it's just lying there. Doesn't it breaks my heart? It really breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart because I can imagine how well we would have done if these things were being utilized properly. The young people were benefiting and were rolling it out. Amazing stuff. Wow. Amazing stuff. But 2021 is coming soon. We will do these greenhouses. We will put them as part of Ejumapa. The young people will do smart farming. Those who cannot sell everything will process through our agro-processing policy for them as well.
I noticed that during your time at Years, you had a monitoring and evaluation mechanism in place for your beneficiaries. Is that part of what you are promising the young people of this country?
I mentioned to you earlier that yes, it's part. You know, you can't support somebody without providing them business support, without providing them technical support. Now, business support is not just telling them how to run their business, but even knowing what the problems are. Now, if you've supported a young person, they're doing poultry, and you're not monitoring them, for instance, to see whether they're having challenges. Maybe a few poultry have died, or maybe the feed got bad, and so they are not being able to turn around as quickly as they can. Remember, these monies you're giving to them probably would have to be paid back at some point so you can support more young people. Monitoring them means that you are a part of their business. And you see, it's not just monitoring, it's creating a relationship with these young people. It's not just government is giving you money through our Ejumapa policy to say that, okay, you go and run your business, we don't care about anything else. We are there with you to make sure that you succeed. Because when you succeed, remember, we are seeking to create 1 million jobs in 4 years. When you succeed, you grow your business. And when you're growing your business, it means that what? You are employing more people.
Our time is almost up. But before we go, I would have loved to continue this conversation for long. But before we go, those watching us at home, they have heard President Mahama speak a lot about Ejumapa. Indeed, you have done a lot of justice to this particular
I have only tried.
Now, in barely 2 months, Ghanaians are going to vote. The young people are going to vote. They want to hear some message from you to be fully convinced that all these things that you have talked about this evening are things that are very dear to the heart of President Mahama. And going forward, if voted into office, he is going to ensure that young people get sustainable and decent jobs, as you have rightly put it.
Thank you, Peter. So, again, President Mahama has detailed specific policies that will benefit our youth and create jobs under a Ejumapa policy. So for the young entrepreneur, for instance, there's an opportunity in the form of funding. There's an opportunity in the form of youth enterprise tax waivers. There's also the 1 million coders program for young people to do coding and programming. We're going to build the capacity of YEA so that they can create more jobs, to create more employment. So in the public employment program, for instance, we're going to establish the military, prison, and police youth farms. National Service had that.
Yes,
we're going to do that for military, military, police, and prison youth farms. I've talked about the tax waiver. I've talked about establishing a one-stop shop business service center so that young people don't have to hassle, to get all these regulatory requirements that they need to set up a business. Again, I've talked about the aggressive skills training for startups. The National Apprenticeship Program is a key feature in our manifesto, and coming into a new government. We're going to support the private sector to create more sustainable jobs. So that's why they need to vote. We're also going to, again, let me repeat, providing the NAPCO beneficiary with decent, sustainable, and permanent jobs. We're also going to help the district assemblies to create jobs. Again, this morning, President Mahama talked about the three-shift economy. I mentioned it here too. Creating the three-shift economy to create a third stream of employment for people in the manufacturing field. So, I mean, looking at all of this, you see that there's something for everybody, wherever you find yourself, whether you want to be in an office, whether you want to be in the vocational, whether you want to be in the farm, whether you want to sew for Peter, whatever you want to do, there's something in the manifesto for you under Ejimapa. So please vote and vote and vote. It's very important. Look, Ejimapa is 1 million jobs in 4 years. It is not a joke. We will do it, and we will do it and do it well. Trust John Mahama. I trust JM.
Helga Boadi is the former chief executive of the Youth Enterprise Support. It's been a very solid discussion, I must say, I had with you. Were these the things you were telling the electorates when you went? Oh,
yeah. Oh, that and more. That and more. We just said that your lives will be better. Just vote JM and your lives will be better. Oh, my goodness. I told you, I couldn't even see the end of the crowd that we had.
Is it going to continue?
You can feel the change. You can feel the change. And look, I tell you, the time for change is now.
Is it?
Come December 7th, there will be a change. The time for change is now. It will happen.
Thank you very much, Helga Boadi, the former CEO of Yes. It's been great coming your way with this week's edition of a Minority Caucus. Clearly, the NDC 2020 manifesto has something for everyone. The next NDC government has promised to implement an aggressive and entrepreneurial program in the public and private sector that will deliver a minimum of 250,000 jobs a year and a total of 1 million jobs across the country by the end of 2024. And I have no doubt that I do trust in President John Dramani Mahama to deliver on the promises made to create sustainable and decent jobs for the Ghanaian people. Thanks for staying with us. The rescue mission is on. Join the train. Don't be left out. This is where we draw tonight, the curtain on tonight's edition of the program, which was proudly produced by Abuna Bagbo and Yayira Koko. Do have a great evening. I'm out of here.